Hi everybody, welcome back to Multimediale Werkzeuge. Today about JavaScript basics. So to look at the basics, I made this little example about a scientific calculator in HTML which uses JavaScript called gs-scicalc.html. So you can find it in, for instance, Moodle 2 and download it and also try it yourself. So I can just go to this folder here and open it with an editor. So for that I open a terminal and then make the font a little bigger. Let's say gedit gs. It's actually in a JavaScript. Gedit gs. There you go. So here you can see what's inside, and you can also simply start it with a browser by just going into these examples and double click on this HTML file, and then it automatically opens the corresponding browser. And you can see it's indeed a scientific calculator. So you can enter numbers and then you apply operations to those numbers. For instance, 2, 3, and then you say x plus y and you get a 5. Or you can also do undo, right? Then you have the original numbers and then you can say, oh, I wanted to have x to the power of y. So here now you apply 2 to the third power, which is 3 to the second power. So it was the other way around. So 3 squared is 9. Right? Again, you can do undo. You can also use storing, store x and recall x. So 1, 2, 3, 4, for instance, and then you can store it in x. You can reset, and with recall x, you should have gotten it back. Interesting, doesn't work. Store x, okay. Remove it, recall. Interesting. Huh. So maybe I should try Chromium or Chrome. Oh, it doesn't have Chromium. Huh, that's strange. That is actually a nice example for the cookies. So let's see. Open with Google Chrome. Here you go. Yeah, I guess this is what I just had. Now open with Firefox. So now I try it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, store x, reset, and recall. Yeah, in Firefox it works. Interesting. Okay. So now about how it is programmed. So you can see actually the JavaScript programs are in the header of this HTML page. So it's not in a separate file in this case, although it could be. Here in this case, it's in the same file and it's part of the header, which is delimited by head and /head. And then the script starts with this command, script type equals text/JavaScript, and ends with /script. So this tells the browser that JavaScript is the language that we're using here. So going back to the editor, you can see it here, right? Here's the head. Here it defines the title that appears on the title bar of the browser. And here you have script type equals text/JavaScript. Right? And then we have all those functions which make up the script, which follow here, until we come to the end of it, and then we have /head. Yeah. So longer scripts can also be read from an external file, as shown in the example drag-drop.htm. So here, for instance, you have the definition of the script type, and then you have the source file specified here, src equals, and then you have the name of the JavaScript that is used. So this is how you could include external JavaScript files. Yeah, there's also this line below the header definition. Here's an example for a JavaScript function. So here this would be the function enter, which I define here. And this enter function contains a call to this function berechne, calculate. So it gives you a number which tells you, or which tells the browser what function to execute, and then it gives the arguments. So here the three different fields. So the values of the x input, the y input, and the z input. So you can take a look at it. You can see you have those three input fields, and they're called z, y, and x. And the x input is at the same time an output. Right. So we see this function starts with the keyword function, and then the name of the function, which is defined there. Then in brackets, we have the list of arguments here, which is empty in this case, because all the input comes from the fields. And then in brackets, the list, then followed by the function program in curly brackets. Right? So in this case, the syntax is similar to C or Java. So here in C or Java, you would also define a function like this. So here with this function command, and then the name and arguments, and here the commands. Right, so how does the input-output work? So in the example, using input-output fields and buttons. These are defined in the body of the web page, which is delimited with body and ends with /body. And here this BG color means background color. That defines the background color of the web page. So in the example, it's bluish green. And here you can see hexadecimal numbers. So each pair of those hexadecimal numbers gives the level of a primary color. So this AA is a byte for the level of green. So AA is any number between 0 and 255 in decimals. Then here FF is actually 255 in decimal. This is for the green component. And then CC is for the blue component. So we have a medium much for red, then full level for green, and somewhat high for blue. That's why we get this green-blue. Yeah, so it's defined by the strengths of those three primary colors. So I should call it primary colors here. Primary. Yeah, so within the body, these elements are in a form, so-called form, delimited by those commands. So we have the keyword form, then we give it a name. The name of this form is Rechner, and then we define an action. Action equals empty in this case. But we have another action which is called onSubmit. And onSubmit is when you press the return key on the keyboard. When you press that button, it calls the function enter, which we just saw. Right. And otherwise it returns false. And then it ends with a /form. So Rechner is the name of the form, which is important for addressing the fields from JavaScript. And action is the start execution, which is empty here, and on submit specifies what to do when the enter key is pressed, as I just said. So it just executes this function enter. So this is then an input-output field. You specify it with a keyword input, well, not keyword, it's the name here, input x output, and then you have spaces. So this is a way to write spaces in HTML. And then you have the keyword input. So this is now the keyword input. Type equals text. That means it expects text from the keyboard as input. Then it gives a name to this input, which is xvert. And then it specifies the width of this input field, which in this case is 80 characters. And this is a return new line. So this is defined, as I said, for the text type, gets the name x value. So again, this is, or should be xvert, which is important for addressing it from JavaScript and has a width of 80 characters. So let's take a look at my editor where you can see it. So we scroll down to the end of JavaScript. So here you can see is the end of the script, end of the head. And here starts the body, and right after starts the form with the input and output fields and the buttons. So here you can see the example. So this is the lowest input field and also an output field. And here it's specified input type text, name xvert, size 80 characters. So basically this defines our three windows, which we can see here on top of our page. Right, those three windows are defined there. And below that we have the definition of the buttons now. Yeah, so this is now a button. So again, it's an input type. So again, the keyword input. And then now type equals button. Right, so before we had type equals text. So now we have type equals button. And value equals reset. So value means now this is the label which appears on the button. And here's what happens when we click it. OnClick equals init calculator. So this is the function which is called when we press the button. So let's take a look. So here we have the reset button. So when I click on it, then everything is reset and the number disappears. Right. So this is also what I just mentioned. This shows how to store data in cookies. So when you want to store data from a website locally, you need cookies. And cookies are the only way for a browser to store data locally. So that's also a security concept that the browser and JavaScript have no way of accessing local memory except for cookies. And cookies can be allowed or not. And probably that was the problem with my Chrome browser, that this Chrome browser didn't allow the cookies. So I couldn't store anything. But Firefox does allow the cookies, so there it worked. And here you can see how you program it. So here I have the button again. Type button, value store x, so that's the label that appears on the button. And then this function onClick. What happens when I click it? Then I have document.cookie equals document.rechner.xvalue xvert.value. So this means the cookie, which is now my local storage. So this actually means document is the current document, and this current document has a cookie. Right? Cookie is a keyword which accesses basically the only memory element that I have for my web page. So it's just this one. So if we want to store more, we have to store more in this one memory element. Yeah, and then here you can see how to access the value of the field. So you type in numbers in this field xwert, and you can address it by taking the current document name, document.rechner. So when you go back to this form, so you can see the form has the name Rechner. So document is this current document, this HTML page. In this page we have the form called Rechner. That could be more than one form, that's why it's important to have a name for it. And inside this form Rechner we have xwert, which is the content that we entered into this field. And this field now contains just the keystrokes 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's just ASCII types. And then the dot value turns those ASCII numbers into a number, float or integer. Right? So then this number is then assigned to the cookie. Right. So here, that's the content of the field. It's actually the number type, the value, and that's stored in the cookie. And similar for recall X. So the next button is recall X. So you can see it, recall RCL, recall X. So this is basically recalling the number that is in the cookie. So here you have cookie is assigned to this field as a value. So we take this number type from document cookie, and this number type is then converted back into an ASCII string and written to this xwert. Right, and that's why 1, 2, 3, 4 reappears in the xwert field. Yeah. Right. So this is how it basically works. Yeah, and then back to HTML5 web apps. So what's a web app? It is called a web app if the application can be run in the browser. Right, so it's like when you have on a smartphone, you have many apps. You can also imagine that those apps are programmed like an HTML, JavaScript with all the functionalities, and then you just need to have, for different operating system, you just need to have different browsers. So you just need to run it, to write it once, this app, as a web page, and then have an environment which is adapted to different operating systems. So that makes, for instance, app writing more efficient. So it is basically a website that is optimized for smartphones, and it was created with standard web technologies. And the opposite would be the native app. It is programmed in Java or Objective-C, depending on the operating system. Yeah, why HTML for web apps? Well, no more Flash necessary, which is power hungry, for instance. It's independent of the device. Can be Android, iOS, tablets or smartphones. The commissions payment to the market operators, that depends where it resides. There are actually many apps inside the market, inside the Play Store, for instance, or the App Store, and these are also based on web apps. So no commission means if you just open it at some external website, then it's true, but often they indeed reside in the App Store. They are also available offline. This should be English. Sufficient mobile browsers available. So Opera, Firefox or Chrome. And style sheets can be used to quickly adapt the designs to other screen sizes. So with CSS, JavaScript and HTML5 you can create web apps with the same design as native apps. So here's an example of embedding style sheets. So here you can see you have Android phone.css, which basically gives you the styles for Android. Here's a little example for an Hello World web app. So you would have the start of an HTML page here in the beginning, and here's the end. Then here you have a body which just says Hello World, simple enough. And here you would define the style, right? So here text CSS and font on this type of Arial. Yeah, and then you can also customize it to the screen size. So there's a viewport tag which sets the screen size and prevents user zoom, for instance, which you can do here with this command, user scalable equals 0. And here you define the width. Yeah, so the displayed web app must be adjusted to the screen size of the device, and this can be implemented using JavaScript. Yeah, and then we have local data storage via HTML. So this is also an important property that we now have more possibilities for storage in HTML5. So we have web storage, which is local storage mechanism for values. Then we have web SQL database, which is access to a SQL-like database, also stored locally. And we have indexed databases, which is a World Wide Web Consortium specification to replace web SQL. In 2012 it was not supported. I'm not sure how it is today. Yeah, another alternative is JSON, JavaScript Objective Notation. It offers the possibility to save JavaScript objects as text. Advantages: this data can be easily exchanged between applications and devices. So also more complex text modules, for instance, can be stored. So here's a little example for a web app. So it really looks like a little app where you can write down tasks, for instance. Yeah, so do the web apps only, it's going to work online? No, with the new HTML feature offline application cache, all HTML images, CSS and JavaScript files are cached. Therefore, no permanent internet connection is necessary. So this is important if you want to run an app and you're not connected. Based on the cache manifest file located on the web server. To do this, the corresponding MIME type must be included. So here you can see how to do it. So here you have manifest and MIME type, text cache manifest, MIME mapping. Yeah. Okay. So this is how it looks like. So here there are some more developer tools. There's Essentia Touch Architect with this link, WebStorm, which is a Java IDE. Then you have UWave, which run Android apps on a PC, and PhoneGap, which is a web app to native app conversion. Here's some helpful links. Self-Art HTML5, this basically teaches you HTML5, and similarly HTML5 Doctor. Yeah, and now some examples for HTML5 video. So last time we saw some examples for HTML5 audio, so now comes the video part. So this is an example of an HTML5 web page with 3 different video formats to test the browser capabilities. Right. Okay. So you can also download it from Moodle 2, where all the examples are. in the JavaScript folder. So here you can see an example of this web page. So here we have the title, Video einbinden, and now we have different video types. So here first org, which is header level 1. Here we specify the width, we specify controls, we have controls here. This is the source file, so we just take some org file as an example here. Type video/org, so this tells the browser what type of video it is. And then I have the same for MP4 and for WebM. And that's it basically. So let's first take a look at it. Copy. Let me go back to my terminal. So where is it? Not here. It's not JavaScript. So ls start.htm. Yeah, here you go. So here we have the video test.html. So gedit, paste. So here you go. So this is exactly what we just saw, right? So 3 different types of video. Simple enough. Just a very simple web page with 3 different videos. So now let's try it with my 2 different browsers. So let's go back. So scroll down to video test. So first open with Google Chrome. So here you can now see the page. So here you can see this is the title, Video einbinden, and here you have the different types, org, MP4 and WebM. So this is actually a video I took with my camera in Japan. So in the bus at night. So let's try it. First org. You notice that the driver is on the right hand side of the bus because in Japan they drive on the left side of the street. Yeah, so it works nicely. And you see all those Japanese signs here, so many lights in Japan. So next in MP4. Interesting, it's not as fluent. There's not so much movement here. So MP4 is working not so well. Now try WebM. Yeah, so that works too. So MP4 was so-so. Now let's try Firefox. So open with Firefox. So the same thing. So here you can see again Video einbinden here in the title, and here the 3 different types. So I wanted to compare the 2. So this is Google and this is Firefox. And you can see actually they look very similar. So you can see here the player is somewhat different. So here you have the timing on the left hand side, and here you have some controls on the right hand side. Here the timing is on the left hand side, then the play button is in the same row, and you have some controls also in the row here. So the player is depending on what kind of browser you have. So it's basically left to the browser. So now let's try it. So this is now Firefox. So again, org. Okay, so that works nicely. So now let's see if MP4 works better. Not really. I would say it's not working at all. So that's basically a fail for Firefox. Oh, now it did something. Okay, but it got stuck again. And now WebM. WebM is also not working so well for Firefox. Interesting. Okay, so it took some time. I'm not sure what Firefox did there. So it took some time to start up. So that's something that was clearly better for Chrome. So let's try again here. So Chrome started right away. So it seems Chrome is more powerful for the video. Yeah, so when trying out, we see that Firefox and Chromium currently support OGG and WebM, but not so much MP4. Right? Chrome, well, actually, I tried Chrome and not Chromium. Chromium would be another one. Chromium is basically the open source version of Chrome. So Chrome, for instance, has proprietary parts for speech recognition, which is not in Chromium. But otherwise they are quite similar. Yeah, so MP4 is still somewhat of a problem. You can also check it out here in the Web Doctor, the video element. Let me try to open it. Oh, it's not really working. So copy and paste. Yeah, so here you can find more details on HTML5 video, how to program it. Okay, so that's it for this part. Thanks for the attention, and see you on the next part.